Hello, everybody, and good evening. Welcome to our November 20th board meeting. I would love to acknowledge that tonight we are gathered on the unceded and unsurrendered traditional territory of the Cochin Smartmatic speaking people. And I would like to express my deepest gratitude that I'm able to live on these incredible lands. I would also love to acknowledge Roberta Ezerza, our district principal for Indigenous education, and she is the recipient of Excellence in Education from province of BC for Indigenous education. And I would also like to acknowledge the PRMS Jazz and Concert Band and their director, Miss Tillman, for being acknowledged by the city of Prince Rupert and winning a Civic Merit Award in excellence in music. So. Could have a motion for the adoption of the agenda. So Trustee Dalton, thank you. Seconded Trustee Horn, all in favor? Great. So moved. Thanks. And now I'll pass this on to, and I would also like to acknowledge that Andrew Samuel is back beside me, and yay as well.
It's nice to be here. It's nice to be in here. Oh,
Pass this on to you.
and I pass it on to Sandra Pond, who, as this is only my 6th hour at work. So technically, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So we want to welcome Curtis. And he's now teaching at Charles Hayes Secondary School. He was at PRMS last year, but he's got an exciting project to share with us.
And do I just share from here?
Sure.
Okay.
Wherever.
Well, I'm Curtis.
There you are.
Nice to meet you. And, oh, good. And I have a presentation that will hopefully come up. Super. So as you can see, it's a really fancy project, bridging from PRMS to CHSS around journalism. And it took a long time to actually find this photo of the actual bridge from PRMS to CHSS. But what we're really talking about is going from here, and then you do the next slide. Oh, the other way. Okay, the way we hope it goes. From here to here. And so I just want to talk a little bit about where this comes from. And it's actually like the first time I get to present to the board, I wanted to talk about something that's actually quite ordinary, something that just happens all the time in our district. And I wanted to kind of point out one of the little threads. So when I went from the middle school to the high school, I had a really unique opportunity to be there on the first day that our old grade 9s had their first day. I mean, our old grade 8s had their first day of grade 9, and they were not excited to see me, their old teacher, on their first day of high school. And I asked my English 9 class, how many of you are excited to see your old teacher here at the high school? Because that's the best thing is new teachers. And not a single hand went up. We're off to a good start. But for me, it was amazing because like I knew every student in the school, about 85%, right? Because not all the students that some have transferred and some have come from other schools and different communities. But it's pretty amazing to be a new teacher in a new school, and you know all the faces, and all the faces looking back know something about you. And I was like, this is amazing. It's just amazing. And then it made me think about all the great ways, all the little threads in our district that connect us to the different places that we work with the young people that are in our community together. And so, so if you want to go to the next slide. And so first thing I just want to point out is that what I'm talking about is nothing special. It's not unique. In fact, our district has lots of these threads. So this is the transition piece, which takes place, which is an important way that we build this tapestry of our community. Go to the next slide. I couldn't miss this, right? We've got our basketball, our hockey, our different sports programs, which are all these ways that we're building these connections as young people transition from the middle school to the high school or different parts of our community. So we can go to the next slide. And so this is how mundane this project actually is. So this is Mr. White, and either I just really miss the middle school, or I'm like really excited about building those connections. I think it's probably more that I just miss the middle school. So I keep showing up to see my old colleagues and to see students there. Oh, it's not quite, we're not quite ready. Oh, we're way ahead now. Okay. And so I just popped in and see Mr. White, and we're like, I'm like, Mr. White, like, you know, what are some ways that we can build connections, right? And I don't know if you know Garrett, but he's very philosophical about things and very serious. And I'm like, well, why don't we do this? Why don't we do this? And he's like, well, it's gotta be authentic. And are you really gonna make it authentic? And I said, well, I'll tell you what, like, just let me come into your class and we'll call it the Bridging Through Journalism from PRMS to CHS project. And he's like rolling his eyes. He's like, that does not sound authentic. And then I'll just talk about stories, and then they'll just connect the two programs, right? So we go, and this is a totally posed photo of Mr. White. So we go ahead, next page. So this is all that we're doing in this little project. I taught this lesson the day before with grade 9s and grade 11s. So and then I just read a little passage out of it, and I'm just going to read it. It's very quick. The truth about stories is that's all we are. I'll tell you something about stories. They aren't just entertainment. Don't be fooled. They are all we have, you see. All we have to fight off, illness and death. You don't have anything if you don't have the stories. And then we invited the students to just sit in a circle. And this happens all the time, right? There's nothing special about this. Teachers are doing this all the time, but just sit in a circle and share each other's stories. So you just ask a question, they listen, they go around 3 times, and then they come back, kind of report back. Every time they report back, I read this little passage again, so it seems really exciting. And we're finished with the first of this experience. I'm doing it in Ms. Wright's room and Mr. White's room. And so then tomorrow I'm gonna go back and we're gonna build on that, right? Just sharing stories. The point is, now this is the year where these students still know who I am. But next year, if my colleagues will let me back into their rooms, if it goes well, then that'll be an opportunity to build a connection with students that will be in grade 8, but they won't have known me. And my hope is that then those threads will be there, and it won't be quite the same thing as staring into a room where all the students are there. They were really disappointed to have a grade 8 teacher. I didn't take it personally or anything, but it's a big deal, that transition. We can go to the next slide. And this one, this is such a creative slide here. This is what it looked like. Do we have it? See, just people sitting around talking. Okay, so stock image, but we can go to the next slide because I just want to kind of make the final connection, and then this is all that I was hoping to share today. But this is also part of the process. So you'll see Sean and Athena. You'll see Athena, she's kind of standing in the background, and then there's David and there's London. And then all the other students, so those are all grade 9 students one is a grade 10 student at the high school, and all the other students are students at middle school. Mm-hmm. Because the students at the high school that are engaged in a different literacy project are now the coaches for the middle school program. Now, this is not unique, it happens in all different areas in our district. Then you go to the next slide. And so here is, again, this is when Zimmerman is presenting to a group of grade 8 students that have come on the day where they're getting ready for a mock trial presentation, right? And this is at the high school, right? So these are middle school students coming in to the high school, just build those connections. There's just one more slide. And then this is another moment. This is where the coaches, 2 of the high school coaches are coaching a group of the middle school students. And what I like about this is I took this photo through the window because I wasn't supposed to be in the room. They're always trying to get rid of me. But I just wanted to share this because to me, it was one of those moments where with the support of supportive administrators, with the support of colleagues that are willing to put up with me popping in and saying, hey, can we do this? With these students that are really excited by this, and then just these one of many, many ways that we weave this tapestry together in the district through all the different levels of support that includes the board, the senior management team, the union, the public, all of us working together to create these opportunities. So that's all I wanted to come by and present. Nice to be at your meeting.
Yeah, I love that you're teaching the students of how the stories are so important to them, because that's not something a student would normally think of straight off the bat, right? And so making the connections between the students in one school to another and showing how the connection goes between them. And, I think that's fantastic that you've gone ahead and taken the effort to do that. So thank you for that. Yeah.
Trustee Pucci?
I just want to share with the board that I've been able to see this, I'll be honest, this weaving happening firsthand recently, just in the debate club, and the middle school and the high school students mixing and working off each other during the debate program that's being done extracurricular. And so I applaud the leadership that you've taken, and I just want to tell the board that we have a fantastic person here who is the belief in the students can overcome an awful lot, and it is a really unique situation with this blended bridge piece. So thank you.
Thank you.
That's excellent, thank you. It just kind of reminds me of an issue many years ago in Haida Gwaii. The two communities were debating over where to put the school. Were they gonna put it in Dacian Gates, formerly known as Queen Charlotte, or Skidegate? And so there was many controversial situations that arose out of it, and I was sort of caught in the middle being a regional district administrator, and so we built the bridge. And so the bridge was bringing the communities back together. And so I see that in what you're doing here, because it's very important at a young age to adopt something that you can use in your future, right? And building a bridge means building what you're building, and I admire you for that.
And I've been able to work on both sides of that. bridge
That's
as well.
what I mean.
And I want,
Go under, right?
yeah, I like to. And I forgot the journalism. So eventually, the middle school and the high school students are going to maybe do a student magazine. And there is the sort of the connection is through that, but we're not ready for that yet. And so eventually we'll have a sample and we'll see if it gets approved. And so, but the invitation is to eventually have a student magazine that's written by students at both schools. Forgot to mention that completely.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for coming tonight and sharing this with us.
Yes, thank
Thank
you.
Thank
you. And approval of the minutes of the open board meeting held on October 16th. Weaver, trustee Horn, and I do have an amendment as the date says this meeting is November 16th, and I would just like to call for a correction that it is actually tonight, which is the 20th.
My motion will be with that adjustment.
As amended, yes, thank you. And a seconder? Trustee Beal, thank you. All in favor as amended? So moved. Thank you, thank you. And the necessity of a closed meeting and agenda?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion.
Trustee Beal, second. Oh, seconder?
Sorry.
Trustee Meyer, would you care to speak to that? Great. All in favor? So moved. And correspondence, nothing addressed to the board. So 5.2 copy to the board, wishes of the board. Trustee Horn?
The 5.2.1, 2.2, 2.3, and 2.4 be put together, motion to receive and file all of them, please.
Seconded. Trustee Beal, would anyone like to speak to that? Trustee Meyer?
I just wanted the 5.2.4. That one was due to a motion that got passed through at PC with the fall, the past meeting that I went to. And the prequel to that was the 5.2.1. That's just for information.
Yeah.
purposes.
Thank you.
Thank you. All in favor for the motion? So moved. Thanks. Superintendent of Schools report, I will pass this over to Sandy.
Thank you. So 6.1.1 field trips. They're on page 15 for your review there. Just one amendment. And thank you for voting for approve the PRMS trip, because I know Ms. Tillman was worried about being able to start fundraising. But they are no longer going to Moose Jaw, they're going to Edmonton. So just as an FYI there.
Thank So we will
Any
amend.
questions about that?
Standard of the dates are staying the same.
Dates are the same, yes, everything else is the same. Yeah. 6.1.2 enrollment, I've included a September count enrollment chart on page 16 that shows on September 30th what the numbers have looked like. And this is the head count, not the FTE. I've also started for 23-24 a new line, it's green. So I think I reported at the last one, we had 1,818 students. We're up to 1,828 at October 31st. And September 30th is always interesting because principals are saying, but this family's on vacation. They say they're coming. I said, yeah, but if we haven't seen them, we haven't seen their eyes, their little bottoms and not being in seats, we cannot count them. So sometimes our number in October grows, which is interesting.
Thank you for this graph. It really
Yeah.
paints the picture that we need as a board to
Yeah,
see and acknowledge where our funds are needed and where we are lacking in student bodies that impacts the budget, right?
right. And I think the good news is that if you look at the graph from last year, we're mirroring that right now.
Yeah.
So not a huge drop. We're staying kind of flat, so let's hope we start to grow. That's our goal.
Any questions on that one?
Okay. So. Next one, I guess, is 6.1.3, and I have to excuse the fact that I don't have a voice, but it's coming back slowly. September, of course, was a month where we were all getting settled into classrooms and teachers were building relationships and EAs were building relationships with students. And in October, we start our initial assessments. We have our student parent teacher interviews. We have our individual education plan meetings, just to ensure that we're able to support every student where they are. And we start our provincial assessments. So I think I've shared a number of times about the framework for enhancing student learning cycle, and the assessments are part of that cycle. And of course, they're a snapshot of where our students are in the moment, and it helps us to look at what we need to attend to for learning. So students in grade 4 and 7 have finished the foundation skills assessments in October. And also, students wrote, grade 12 literacy students wrote their exam in October. The grade 10s will do their numeracy 10 and their literacy 10 in January. Just so people kind of know what's happening with the provincial assessments. And I think I shared last time that we should be getting our updated graduation data the beginning of December. So we will, we'll have a meeting in January around the framework and all of the data, as well as a working session. So all of our schools have been holding some very interesting events for parents to attend, and one that I just wanted to highlight was I was at Lahaina a couple of weeks ago, and the kindergarten teachers had held a kids play cafe in the morning, which included their parents and guardians in student learning and exploration. And they were really excited because so many families showed up. Like, it was really, really well attended. So I thought that was a very fun, innovative thing. Another project that we just wanted to highlight was that Charles Hayes and RMS are continuing with the 3-year Improving Transitions for Indigenous Students project. So we started that a similar transition project in 2014 or 15. And that's when we created the Transitions Learning Feast, where the grade 8 students attend at Charles Hayes and they welcome them to the new school. So they're just looking at more ways to make that transition more seamless for students. So that's a great project. Of course, Curtis shared a project that he's doing. So there's many of these things happening in our school district all the time. to the point where it's hard to keep up with what actually is going on. It's good. And I think the last thing I just wanted to highlight was that all of the schools held their Remembrance Day ceremonies on November 9th this year. And those are always amazing, creative, and lots of the schools include the community in those ceremonies, which is really lovely. I think that's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions? Yes, trustee Fuji?
I'm just wondering if maybe there could be a comment around if maybe under 15% or over 15% of the parents withdrew their students or withdrew their children, the students from the assessments. I'm aware of a letter that went around from teachers or that
Numbers yet. Not sure of the numbers yet, Mike, but we know that parents is recommended. Excuse me, by BCTF, but FINESC is very strongly advocating for families to participate in those assessments.
I fully agree, and that's why I was kind of wondering if it was plus or minus 15% of our student body. That's all.
Thank you. Any further questions? All right, thank you very much. Secretary Treasurer report, Sydney?
Thank you. So 7.1 is the two regular October expenditure reports. So I've been doing some analysis on the variances between where we're at as of October 31st and where we would expect to be at this time of the year. So for example, the teacher's salary category has 78.7% of the budget remaining. However, we would expect to have about 80% of the budget remaining at this time of the year. Another example is that substitute salary has 76.2% of the budget remaining. However, we would also expect for this category to have 80% of the budget remaining at this time of the year. So these are just a couple examples of areas that we'll be looking further into during the amended budget process. So we will be analyzing all of the category variances, both the positive variances and the negative variances, during the amended budget process to help ensure that the amended budget is as accurate as possible.
Any questions? Trustee Klein?
So thank you for that. So that would mean that the amended budget, we would have to make some kind of change to make up for the shortfall, even though it's not huge, but the amount that there is. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
And also to note that this is for just 2 months, so,
Yes,
right, I understand that Brittany's aware and tracking.
I'm tracking, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Any further questions? None. So moving on to 7.2, operations department report. Any questions on that?
Trustee Horn?
So in the, I know that James is not here to answer, but,
Keep
Yeah,
that in mind.
He's on
oh, okay, hey James. We, the hired the extra driver, increased demand for busing. Is this because we have the extra bus? Is that what the reasoning?
Yes, that's right. So we have the extra field trip bus, and so then that was being used to go out of town, which takes our in-town driver away. So we needed somebody to fill in while we do field trips out of town.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Yes, trustee Meyer.
I don't know if it would go here. I think it would be though. Is there an update on the sensors that keep going off at Charles Hayes? I think it's the O2 sensors, CO2 sensors or O2 sensors.
Yes, it's a bit of an ongoing problem. We are working through it slowly, and it wasn't so there wasn't actually a CO2 sensor that went off in that room because there's no CO2 sensor in that room. So there's just something within the system that we have to slowly work through, and one of them was a motion detector, so we've changed that out, and so we're slowly working through those issues.
Thank you, thank you.
Any further questions for James? Thank you so much, James.
No problem. Thank you.
Technology Department report, Dinesh. Trustee Horn and then trustee Beal.
I see that projector, we got some projector gear from Terrace School District, great score on the tech department for that. And it's great to see that we have good collaboration between the districts in the north. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
And thank you, trustee Horn. I wanted to acknowledge that and offer gratitude to Terrace for that. So yes, thank you.
Well, all three of us, I guess, because I was
You
gonna,
were the
I also want to know, so is this a donation by the Terrace, like a complete I guess it was donated for,
Yes, they were working with another school district and they did the complete upgrade of that and, this Terrace reached out to me if that would be helpful for our district and they were willing to give it to us.
that's awesome. Could we acknowledge that by sending a thank you letter from the board, please? I'd like to make a motion that we send a letter to the school district, 82?
Seconded, trustee Horn, all in favor? Wonderful. So moved. Any further questions?
So, James, just to add on to that, what we're trying to reach within the northern, district, reason is to create a little committee that we can all share knowledge and pull in the talent within us. So sharing knowledge within the school district and then seeing how we can help each other. Another project that we're working on.
That's wonderful
Yeah,
news,
yeah.
wonderful news, because we had a little bit of a split several years back. I'm happy to hear that.
Thank you so
you.
much for sharing that.
Must be you that brought that goodbye.
On to committees, 8.1, finance and building. trustee
Well,
Beal?
Miss Brittany stored 900, so thank you.
Framework for enhanced student learning, trustee Horn.
Haven't sat recently.
PC Council, trustee Meyer.
Yeah, I went to a provincial council meeting a few weeks ago where they did like a pre-budget, just kind of let us know what it looks like, and then it will be voted on, in February. They had a surplus again of like 200,000, give or take, and mainly it was because of switching things to online. Even though the provincial council meeting that I attended in February made them go over in provincial council. So they've decided that their February meetings will now be online instead of trucking people to Vancouver in the middle of the winter. They're using that surplus to pay for the increase in fees that they do every year. So again, I know I say it every year, but for the last 4 years I've been on provincial council meeting, the fees get raised, but their surplus pays for the raises. So if it comes that the surplus is not there, we're gonna see a big jump in fees, like 4 years worth of an increase. And I don't know what that looks like, but just put it on Brittany's radar that, you know, if the surpluses aren't there, we might, our fees will be increased for BCSTA. And then we passed a couple of emergent motions. One was in our correspondence today, just about advocating advocating for the values of equity, diversity, and inclusion in all BC school systems with the province. Another one was to advocate to increase pay equity supplements to ensure that districts that had addressed or partially addressed pay equity using their own operating dollars prior to the instituting of the pay equity supplement are provided an increase. I don't know if Brittany, you know this or the superintendent, essentially back in, I don't know how many years ago, the province gave money to the school system for pay equity. So it was to boost like secretarial job, that type of thing, to boost pay. Some school districts were already on board and had increased pay, so they got less money. I don't know if that was our school district or not. But there was a handful of school districts that had already increased the pay for those positions. And so they get less money, so they would like more money. So I don't know if that's us, or if this will then turn into, they will just take all that money away. I don't know. So yeah, I'm hoping it's a positive for us. And then another one was to get BCSTA to create a working group to recommend to the Ministry of Finance to provide funding and incentives for child and youth mental health clinicians and Indigenous practitioners that are located in rural and remote communities, essentially to give them more money or incentives to work with the school system to make sure that they're that we're all meeting the needs of children and youth in our communities. So those were the three. They were the only three that were put forward. We passed them all. And the next meeting for that is in February that Trustee Horn will be taking. I pass that to you.
Thank you.
The torch is
Pass.
And could I ask if
Yes.
you contact PC, the whomever powers be to let them know that it's changed?
If I was reading the email correctly, it is the executive assistant that will
Okay,
contact
wonderful. Thank you.
and give like the BCPC and provincial council. Yeah.
Wonderful,
Yeah.
thank you. Okay, alrighty. On to Indigenous Education Council, we met on October 23rd. And we had a really lovely presentation from the new district food coordinator and the program from Nadia and Jit, which was quite informative. And also Nadia shared that she's looking for as much feedback and connections, and she really came for traditional foods and to talk to the committee about what her visions are, and then also to share that as she, at the time, she was just really new in the role and really part-time, is my understanding. And so as she gets more familiar with the role and what that looks like, how things will shift and change, but really she shared what her vision is right now. And then the committee shared possible connections for her. She was speaking with Cam Hill from GIGAD, and he was sharing things that he's done. And then I was sharing some things I'd heard from Haidawai, and maybe that's a contact for her. And I know that Andrew Samuel and I talk often about
I
what-
can barely hear you.
Sorry, that Andrew Samuel and I have talked about what it looks like to have food security and visions as well for our district. So I think that Nadia, she's very keen to have a lot of conversation and also to know what this looks like for our district. So that was a beautiful sharing at the table. And then we had a school district update from Sandy Pond, which led us right into talking about UNDRIP, the United Nations Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous Peoples Act. And there has been some change provincially from the ministry. And I don't know that I'm speaking out of turn, but I would feel that our district is right in line with what has already come down for the province. And we just looked at some parts of UNDRIP, and then that really led into us talking about Indigenous education and got us talking about our curriculum specifically in our school, and really just looking at the best outcomes for our students and how that really starts right when they enter school. And we were talking a lot about the new curriculum and new expectations by government, and also just some of the courses that we currently have and how they can best support students. And a lot of table committee members had questions around that, which I think was a really fulsome conversation about a lot of things. And then, yeah, I don't know, would you have anything else to share?
No, I think you've done a great job. It's always such a great meeting and lots of information and packed into a room. We've got some changes coming, yes. And so Roberta shared a little bit about that and how, what that might look like. And we're still learning all about that. So in terms of, in terms of the council itself, right, when that'll look like.
And I did forget one point that I put, regional sessions with FNESC, the First Nations First Nations Education Steering Committee were held in Prince Rupert in October 10th, and that looks like, Prince Rupert SD 52, as well as outline, school in reservations. And so that was all brought together and we were shared a handout, and also just how much data is in there as well that we can be looking at as well when we're looking at our equity scans, etc. Yeah. Any questions?
No, it sounds like a great meeting.
And then, policy committee, trustee Warren.
I'd like to propose a motion to approve policy 3360, multimedia devices policy, and 1140, student reporting policy.
Seconder,
Second that.
trustee Beal, would you care to speak to that? Yes, please.
These were sent out to stakeholders, Brittany, do you get the responses back from stakeholders?
No.
No, the same, so was there any, what merit?
Yeah.
Is there, there was nothing to report, okay, that was it.
Sorry, thank you. Thank you very much. We have a motion on the floor. All in favor? Wonderful, so moved.
And policies for review, so I get a motion, please, to send for review.
Sure, seconder. Trustee Beal,
Motions 1220, international student policy, and 1110, learning resources policy.
would you care to speak to that motion? Wonderful. Motion on the floor, all in favor? Great, so moved. Thank you.
And then also in the meeting, we asked that the review schedule rotation be presented, and so the members of the committee were each given a copy of the schedule so that we could prioritize ahead of time what it is we're going to be doing and bring forward to the committee.
Thank you. Any questions for trustee Horn?
No.
Not seeing any. On to 8.6, trustee Horn.
Committee did not sit the last meeting.
Thank you. Old business? None. New business? None. Information items, professional development day for our district is November 24th. BCSTA trustee academy is this week, November 23rd, 24th, and 25th. Our next meeting will be the 18th. And then we are on Christmas break from December 25 to January 5th. Now we have 10 minutes for questions from the floor in regards to the agenda. Yes, trustee Meyer.
I just wanted to shout out that the high school musical
Thank you.
will be doing their musical Something Rotten on November 29th. November 30th, or sorry, yeah, November 30th, December 1st, and December 2nd. So go, yeah, get your tickets, go.
Thank you so much for that. Yeah. And is that the Lester Center?
The
That's
Lester
during Winterfest. Wonderful. 10-minute question and answer period. Calls for questions going twice. Call for question one more time. Not seeing any. Have a wonderful week, and thank you all so much for coming tonight. Take great care.